Now that you're signed in, you should see your name up above. So my first name is Morgan, so it says Morgan. I'm good to go. I'm in the right account. And I've got this graph on Desmos. And I'm going to hit on the little plus sign and insert an image. I'm going to choose from the photo library because I had taken a screenshot. And I'm inserting that graph. And it will spit that right in there. And now I can click on that graph and I can make it bigger or smaller. So I'm looking at the points Plymouth, Crystal, and Golden Valley, and I want to stretch or shrink it so that they end up on whole numbers. I don't want to have to deal with fractions on my points because that's just going to make life tougher for me. So I am stretching that until all of those more or less meet or are on a point that I could name in a graph. And I'm going to call this close enough. And again, if you don't get it exact, that's okay. Now I'm going to add my own points over it in Desmos. So I'm going to click below where that image is. And I'm going to look at Crystal first, which is where I live. And Crystal right now, I'm going to call it at 10, 7. And I know it's a little bit off from that, but I'm going to get it as close as I can using whole numbers. I don't need you to deal with fractions. If you really want to, you can. Okay, and that dot will mark its point, and I'm going to label it as Cronin. Because that's where Miss Cronin's living. And then I'm going to do the same thing with Golden Valley. And it looks like Golden Valley is at 10, I'm going to call it 10, negative 6. Okay, and that's where Miss Strong lives, so I'm going to label that. And then I'm doing the same thing with Plymouth, and I'm going to call Plymouth to be at negative 10, 0. Okay, and again, that one's a little bit off, but that is okay. It's as close as I can get while using whole numbers. And I'm going to label that one as Furnace because that's where Miss Furnace lives. And now I need to write equations of lines that are the perpendicular bisector between Miss Cronin and Miss Strong, Miss Furnace and Miss Cronin, Miss Furnace and Miss Strong. So the first one I'm looking at, and I'm going to split my screen with some notability just so I've got some scratch paper to write on and you can kind of see my work. The first one I'm going to go between Miss Cronin and Miss Strong. So the red dot and the blue dot. My slope is my y value is going down 15. My x value is not changing at all, so that's a 0. So that slope is undefined, which means the negative reciprocal of that slope is 0. And remember, when I have 0 slope, my equation will be y equals, and then whatever y value my midpoint is. And the midpoint of that side is going to be 10. 7 minus 6 is 1, cut in half is a half. So I'm going to have y equals 1/2. So I've already got one equation. Awesome. So I'm going to highlight this one. There's one that's good to go. I'm going to do the same thing now between Furnace and Cronin. So the slope between that red point and that green point, my y value is going down 7. My x value is going down 20 gross. So my negatives will cancel out, which means the perpendicular slope that I'll actually use will be negative 20 over 7. The midpoint of those, between the red point and the green point, 10 plus negative 10 is 0, divided by 2 is 0. 7 plus 0 is 7, divided by 2 is 3.5. So I'm going to use this point and this slope and throw it into slope-intercept form. And the awesome thing about Desmos is I can type that equation and I don't have to clean it up or multiply or anything. So I'll have y minus 3.5 equals negative 20/7 times x minus 0. So I'm going to be using that equation, this equation, and then I'm going to write one more so I can get full points on this project. And that will be the equation between Miss Strong and Miss Furnace, the perpendicular bisector between them. So between Miss Strong and Miss Furness, the y, or the x value, y value is going up 6. The x value is going down 20, which means the perpendicular slope will be positive 20 over 6. And I like to simplify my fractions, so I'm going to use 10/3. But Desmos will work even if you don't. My midpoint then between those two, 10 plus negative 10 is 0, divided by 2 is still 0. Negative 6 plus 0 is negative 6, divided by 2 is negative 3. I'm using this slope and this point in point slope form. So I'll have y plus, or minus a negative 3 becomes a plus 3 equals positive 10/3 times x minus 0. I'm going to type the 3 equations that I found into Desmos and see where they meet. So I'm going to come over again, and I'm typing in my first one exactly as I found it. So y equals 0.5. Great. And it'll draw that line in for me. My second equation is y minus 3.5 equals negative 20 over, and it'll automatically give me my little fraction. To get out of that fraction, I'm going to hit the little arrow over key times x. And my last equation is y plus 3 equals 10/3 x. Now I can get rid of my scratch paper, and I'm going to zoom way in and find where those meet. And those meet, if I click on that point, it shows me, hey, I'm meeting at 1.05, 0.5. Okay. And if I had a better image of Google Maps, or if I zoomed in, I could figure out what that park name is. But it looks like we're going to meet at some park off of 169, somewhere between 26th Avenue and 36th Avenue. And we're going to have a grand old time. Kind of near Medicine Lake, actually. So for my final write-up then, I'm going to have a screenshot of this. Okay, of all my maps. And I'm going to make sure that my equations are visible and my points are visible. And then I'm also going to label the point and kind of say, where is that in the real world? So I could say something as simple as, we're going to meet at a park off 169 near Medicine Lake. Okay. If it had come up and it was somewhere that had a name visible, you could say, we're going to meet at Clifton French Regional Park. Wonderful. Okay. But if it's kind of vague, you could just give the nearest intersections that you're able to find, other landmarks.